Why quiet people observe more than they speak. Most people think quiet people are silent because they have nothing to say. But psychology suggests something far deeper. Some people became quiet because, at some point in their life, speaking felt unsafe. So they learned to watch instead, to read emotions before words, to sense tension before conflict, to understand everyone while slowly hiding themselves. And the strange part is, the skill that once protected them is often the reason they now feel invisible. If you've ever felt like you notice everything, but nobody truly notices you, this video will explain why. The silence that learned to watch. There's a certain kind of quiet that people misunderstand. Not the peaceful quiet of someone who feels complete within themselves. Not the comfortable silence shared between people who feel safe. But the quiet that listens more than it speaks. The quiet that notices everything. Tone shifts, facial expressions, pauses between words, long before anyone else realizes something has changed. Maybe this is you. You walk into a room and immediately feel the emotional temperature. You know who's uncomfortable. You sense tension before voices rise. You read people the way others read headlines. And yet, when it's your turn to speak, something stops you. Not fear exactly, not shyness. Something deeper. A silent calculation. Is this safe to say? Will this change how they see me? Will honesty cost connection? So you observe instead. You gather information, you analyze, you understand everyone except the part of yourself that never learned how to exist without watching first. Here lies the paradox. The very skill that once protected you is now the reason you sometimes feel invisible. Your silence became intelligence. Your observation became survival. But survival has a hidden price. Because when a person learns to watch life instead of fully entering it, they become fluent in understanding others, while slowly losing fluency in expressing themselves. And this isn't personality, it's psychology. The mind that learned safety through observation. Quiet observers are rarely born this way. They are shaped. Often, early environments taught one powerful lesson. Speaking freely was unpredictable. Observing was safe. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a nervous system trained to constantly scan for emotional danger. When a child grows up around criticism, emotional inconsistency, or unspoken tension, the brain activates survival intelligence. The amygdala becomes highly responsive, while awareness sharpens towards subtle cues. The child learns, before you act, watch. Before you speak, analyze. Before you trust, predict. Over time, observation becomes automatic. Another concept at work is emotional neglect. Not necessarily abuse, but the absence of emotional attunement. When feelings are ignored or dismissed, expression feels pointless or risky. So the mind adapts by turning inward. Thought replaces expression. Analysis replaces spontaneity. Neuroscience even points towards heightened activity in the default mode network, the brain system responsible for introspection and internal narrative. Quiet observers often live deeply inside reflection, constantly interpreting social meaning. Attachment theory adds another layer. Many develop forms of avoidant attachment, not because they don't want connection, but because vulnerability once felt unsafe. They learned connection through understanding others, not through revealing themselves. The nervous system becomes efficient at reading people, but cautious about being read. And slowly, identity forms around one belief. If I understand everyone, I can prevent pain. Observation becomes emotional armor. But armor, even protective armor, is heavy to carry forever. The invisible grief of the observer. Carl Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what happens when becoming yourself feels less safe than understanding others? Quiet observers carry a unique form of grief, one that rarely has language. It is the grief of presence without participation. You are included, yet slightly outside. Heard, yet not fully known. Connected, yet strangely alone. Because observation creates distance. You see people clearly, their fears, patterns, insecurities, but few people see you with the same depth. And eventually, a silent exhaustion appears. The exhaustion of always being aware. The mind never rests. Every interaction becomes analysis. Every silence becomes interpretation. Philosopher Seneca warned that constant anticipation of outcomes steals peace from the present moment. And this is the hidden cost. You stop experiencing moments directly. Instead, you monitor them. You don't just laugh, you notice who didn't laugh. You don't just speak, you evaluate how it sounded. You don't just exist, you observe yourself existing. Rainer Maria Rilke believed solitude could deepen the soul, but solitude without expression becomes isolation. The observer begins to wonder, if no one truly knows me, do I fully exist to them? So authenticity becomes sacrificed for harmony. You become easy to be around, understanding, calm, insightful. But internally, a quieter question forms. Who am I when I stop adapting? When observation becomes identity. The observing child grows into an adult who appears emotionally intelligent, but often carries unseen struggles. You might notice patterns like these. 1. Relationships. You understand partners deeply, but struggle to express your own needs. You become the listener, the stabilizer, the emotional translator, rarely the one being held. 2. Career behavior. You excel in environments requiring analysis, strategy, or perception, yet hesitate to promote yourself or share ideas openly. Visibility feels unsafe. 3. Self-worth. Your value becomes tied to usefulness, being insightful, helpful, or emotionally aware, rather than simply existing as yourself. 4. Boundaries. Because you anticipate others' reactions, you over-adjust. Saying no feels like disrupting emotional equilibrium. 5. Emotional regulation. You process feelings intellectually instead of emotionally. You understand emotions more than you feel them. 6. Identity confusion. After years of adapting to others, you may struggle to answer simple questions. What do I actually want? What do I enjoy without approval? These behaviors are not flaws, they are coping mechanisms. The nervous system learned long ago that safety came from awareness, not expression. But adulthood asks something different. It asks not just awareness, but participation. Unlearning begins when you realize observation was protection, not destiny. You are not meant to remain the audience of your own life. Awareness must slowly be paired with risk. Small honesty, small expression, small moments of being seen without preparation. Because growth for the observer is not becoming louder than others. It is becoming present. From watching life to living it. Healing does not mean abandoning observation. Your sensitivity is not the problem. Your depth is not the problem. The goal is integration, allowing awareness and authenticity to coexist. Here are grounded steps towards healing. 1. Inner child work. Begin asking, when did silence become safer than speaking? Write conversations with your younger self. Validate the adaptation that once protected you. 2. Nervous system regulation. Practices like slow breathing, grounding exercises, or mindful movement teach the body that expression is no longer danger. Safety must be felt physically, not just understood intellectually. 3. Shadow work. Jung described the shadow as the parts of ourselves we hide to maintain acceptance. Explore suppressed traits, anger, desire, opinions, ambition. These are not threats, they are unfinished pieces of identity. 4. Practice imperfect expression. Speak before overthinking finishes its analysis. Let sentences be messy. Authenticity grows through repetition, not perfection. 5. Choose softness over survival. You no longer need to predict every emotional outcome. Not every moment requires preparation. Sometimes connection deepens precisely when control disappears. Remember this: the observer learned to survive by